that.
Okay, now
Start the intro.
When things are wrong, I'll be by your side. Even when you want to cry.
We have arrived.
We are here.
First ever actual live stream, yeah?
Yeah, on the Tube of Views.
On the Tube of Views.
Yep.
Awesome. We're covering the master debates tonight. I mean, presidential debates tonight.
Well, they are master debaters.
They are master debaters.
They've been practicing for a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure they have.
They've got their flashcards.
I'm sure that they have it well in hand.
Yes.
It's going to be a great evening.
Yeah. And we are stealing our stream from the stream of Fox, who is hosting this.
Yes.
So we figured that's the least probable cause of getting copyright stuff, but we probably will anyways eventually when people actually care about us and watch us.
Yeah, probably.
And by then it'll be too late. Nobody will care to watch this. So
right. Right. Well,
it's a trial run.
By that point, we'll probably be banned anyway.
It's more for us than it is for you.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
anything we want to start with while they're...
I don't know, old guys doing old things.
Yeah.
Should we do a related news story?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, the trip to Oregon went well.
Oh, yeah. How'd that go?
Went really well. We delivered a lot of awesome goods. We filled, so just with the clothing and like camping gear and cooking stuff, those things that we gathered, we filled, I think, 4 Connex boxes at one of the distribution places there.
Nice.
And then we took all the food to a
food bank thingy?
Yeah, like a food bank thing. It just run out of a church there. We filled like 3 of their rooms with food and water.
Nice.
So it was really good. We distributed the dog and cat food and stuff to
just kind of spread it around everywhere.
Just took it. Spread. We were actually handing it out to the tweakers and stuff on the side of the road because they didn't know any better. No, we didn't do that. It went to an actual animal shelter organization that was helping recover the lost pets and stuff like that, and helping people that didn't have a place to house their pets in this and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was actually kind of weird because it didn't go the way that I thought it would. Like, I was expecting that we'd drive in and they'd have like a place set up where we'd go and distribute stuff ourselves, but we ended up taking it all to a bunch of storage stuff, and there's a Goodwill there in Medford that is like set up as the front for everything there, like the storefront for everything there. So residents and people affected by the fires can go into the Goodwill, tell them that they've lost things in the fires and that they're, what the things they need are, and Goodwill will give it to them for free.
Oh, okay.
Essentially. So this was a pretty interesting trip. Heard a lot of interesting stories while I was up there, including one that will make you really mad.
Okay. All right.
So, we
got the debate to cheer us up.
We do have the debate to cheer us up here in a second.
If it doesn't, I'm going to be severely
eventually gets into going. But one of the guys that went with us has an uncle who is out of state. I can't remember if it was from Michigan or Indiana, somewhere back east, and he's up there fighting fires right now. His whole I guess group from his state has been sent up to assist with the firefighting. And last week they had to be evacuated by police officers from the front lines of the fires.
Oh.
Because they were getting shot at.
Oh.
Yeah. People up there are shooting at the responders that are trying to stop the fires from torching the towns and stuff up there. So
No one would be that heartless, though.
oh right,
No one would be that. So you sent me that bit of info when I was at my parental unit's house,
oh yeah,
and my dad, he served a mission for the LDS Church in Ireland
oh yeah,
back when the IRA was a big thing.
oh really,
Yeah. And he said that often him and his companion be walking down the street and there'd be a bus on fire from the IRA. They parked it in the middle of the intersection, lit it on fire. Then as the firefighters came by to put out the fire, they'd shoot at the firefighters. So the firefighters would retreat back about half a mile and just let the bus burn.
It was crazy. I heard
it's not a new tactic for anarchists.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I heard the most insane stories while I was up there about different stuff going on with these fires. Like it's absolutely nuts, man. Like I can't even begin to describe to you how just heartbreaking the entire situation up there is. It's bad.
There's a local ABC affiliate there that has a headline: "Suspect shot at firefighters and police as flames spread through Oregon neighborhood."
Yeah. Yep. So there's that one.
I saw a story before of a lady that noticed some guy sniveling around her house in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And so she confronted him, drew a gun on him, and told him to get on the ground because he was acting very suspicious. And called police and all that. Police came. He had stuff to start a fire on him. He kept saying it's the lighter and stuff was for his cigarettes, but he didn't have cigarettes on him. And
That's interesting.
sneaking around behind people's houses in a wooded area.
Well, yeah. So that was one of the other interesting things. So the guy that was arrested for starting the Phoenix, Oregon fire,
Right.
Apparently, from what I heard from some of the locals up there, they believe that he started the fire to cover up a murder. Like he murdered somebody, dragged their body into the woods, and was trying to burn it, and it
To destroy evidence.
caught and ended up burning like the entire city of Phoenix.
Not unlike the body they found burned in the protests in Minnesota.
Yep.
Nothing like that.
Insanity, man.
Yeah.
Absolute insanity.
Yeah.
So now that I've taken my sidetrack, there was something that you were going to get to.
Oh, yeah, some related news to the debates.
Oh.
I got a story out of the our neighbors in the Great White North.
Canada?
Canada. Yep. The headline to this: "Is it time to decolonize your lawn?" You might be asking how that's related to the debates.
Was it like ants, or do they have like ant colonies in their lawns? Is that a big problem up there?
Zigzagoon is there.
Oh, that's what.
Yeah, when you got a serious case with Zigzagoon, you got to decolonize Zigzagoon.
Everything was peaceful until
Until the Pokemon showed up.
Till the Fire Ant Nation invaded.
Exactly. And what this has to do with the presidential debates is absolutely nothing, just like every other stupid thing going on today.
Yeah.
Anyway, in this, the guy writing the article says, when most people think of lawns, they picture carefree kids playing in backyards, picnics in well-kept parks. Perhaps they even feel a sense of pride at how green and immaculate their own swath is. But the traditional lawn, manicured, verdant, under control, now finds itself at the confluence of two hot-button issues: climate change and indigenous rights. Some environmentalists, First Nations leaders, and even hobby gardeners are calling for a different approach to how we view and treat the ubiquitous urban green space. It is, they argue, a lasting symbol of how settlers appropriated indigenous land and culture, and the rigid Western ideal we have imposed continues to hurt the planet and, in turn, all of us. The lawn, some go as far to say, needs to be decolonized. So, Apparently, growing Kentucky bluegrass is not indigenous. Kentucky bluegrass. That's at least in the northern half of the U.S. That's the more common grass type. Southern half of the U.S. basically gets coarse.
But this was
grass.
about Canada, so Canada doesn't have any indigenous grass. Their indigenous grass is iceberg.
Yes, and also.
Oh, hey, look!
Oh, look!
A lot of people in masks just
important
walking in.
people related to the president are walking in.
Oh, yes, I recognize behind the mask. None of them.
Okay, I'll stand. Sit, stand, sit.
Stand, sit, stand. Walk. I never really thought that like people robbing banks and stuff wearing masks is like, how's that a good disguise? Now I understand.
Now you understand.
I don't recognize anybody.
Yeah. Last place I worked. Oh, there's Chris Wallace. Good for him. He's saying welcome. Blah blah blah. Don't care. Welcome everyone to the debate. It's gonna be great. And ask some questions. Blah blah blah.
And tonight, for your viewing pleasure, we have the Master Debaters. Your Master Debaters this evening are President Donald J. Trump and ex-Vice President and someone who has made millions and millions of dollars as a public servant, which is really weird. Ex-Vice President Joseph Robinette Biden.
Yay.
Yay, applause and stuff.
Yeah. So the...
Clap, you stupid bastards.
Oh, thanks for joining us, Joe.
Anyway.
So to wrap up this lawn thing,
Kentucky bluegrass.
Another thing I take umbrance with this is clearly written by someone who is extremely lazy and doesn't care about their lawn. Because in Utah, for example, when the pioneers got here, I would have been one of those pioneers that questioned, just forgot his name.
Which one?
The prophet.
Brigham?
Brigham Young.
Brigham, yes.
It's got a school named after him, whatever.
Brother Brigham.
Brother Brigham. I would have questioned Brigham when he stood at the top of that little crest and said, "This is the place."
That's the thing you would have questioned him on?
Well, there's some things. But in that moment,
Anyway.
I would have been one of the saints. This is the place. Are you sure? Because Star Valley is just right.
If we go like 500 or 600 more miles, we can find gold and stuff.
Yeah. The Salt Lake Valley was a wasteland of a desert. There was one tree and it was dead.
Salt. Lots and lots of salt.
Lots of salt. Now it's this sprawling oasis of green grass and concrete.
Oasis is a word, I guess.
I mean, when you build a bunch of dams and reservoirs up in the mountains to harvest water, yeah, you can have all kinds of oases in the desert. But other than that,
it's always the answer when you need water.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yes. But also, these guys, they point out, at least for the Americas, how the lawn is based off of, is from their colonial roots and all that stuff. And it's not really, at least for the average American. The average American, it's more so based off of, there's the first lady.
Ah, yes.
Walking in. Stand, sit, stand, sit. It's more so based off of the, when the soldiers came home from World War II, they liked all the little green lawns and white picket fences around everyone's houses that they were walking around in. So that's where the modern lawn was from victory. You're welcome, Canada. So there's that. Decolonize your lawn by planting more grass in it.
Decolonize Zigzagoon.
Canada will apologize eventually for coming up with such a dumb idea. Eventually.
Well, that's lovely.
I tried to drag that out. I dragged that out to 7 o'clock, and they're not on stage.
Yeah, it's because they're always late. 7 o'clock is when everybody is supposed to be in and seated at the actual place. 7 o'clock our time, anyway.
Has Joe's people showed up?
I don't know. I haven't seen them.
Yeah.
All I saw was the first family.
The first family.
But,
And Chris Wallace is sitting there scribbling on his notepad.
yes. Yeah. Who's the moderator tonight?
Chris Wallace.
Is it Chris Wallace?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he came up with the questions, apparently.
Ah. So do we need to do a drinking game with this? Like,
I feel like there's not enough alcohol left in the country for a drinking game related to this. Joe's going to struggle. The teleprompter is behind him. That's going to be hard to hide.
oh, wow. That's terrible.
For those who decide to only listen to this, it's Chris Wallace's teleprompter that's behind them.
It is Chris Wallace's teleprompter behind them.
The joke is still appropriate.
And then I believe I caught a glimpse of it a couple of times when they zoomed in on the stage, but it looks like the Constitution of the United States in those big blue screens, but I couldn't tell.
It probably is. Huh. Seeing as how Americanized this stage is set, you got the American Eagle flag, E pluribus unum, blah, blah,
surprises me that some of the liberals can be in the same room as those words and not burst into flame.
Well, you see that shadowy spot off to the right?
Ah,
yeah.
Is that the place that we don't go?
Exactly, Mufasa.
You must never go there.
It's a great meme set.
What's that shadowy place?
I've seen it for both Xbox and PlayStation. What's that shadowy place over there? That's a PlayStation Network. You must promise me you will never go there. Aha. And switch it for PlayStation lovers.
Yeah, pretty much.
Adjust yourself, Chris. There you go.
Adjust yourself again.
That chair isn't
on
quite
camera.
what he wants it to be. Not quite. 1 minute, he says.
One minute.
1 minute.
Uno mas.
Yeah. And he's saying something else.
He's
Do we
saying
want to hear what he's
something.
saying?
We can unmute it. You got the mute button over there. There you go.
Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden.
First
This
of the
debate is
presidential
sponsored
debates.
by the Commission on Presidential
This was supposed to be
Debate.
the second one,
The
wasn't it?
commission has designed the format.
Well,
six roughly
Let's be really
15-minute
honest
segments.
here. If Joe Biden doesn't make a complete fool of himself tonight, if he actually comes off as doing semi-decent, they're going to cancel all the other presidential debates. No, we don't need him to.
You sure? 'Cause
We're not going to grace.
There's a few more
this
than just
president
4 or
with any
5
more.
topics to cover in
You know,
this
we're
debate.
not going to grace this president with any more of our time, since he's.
So prediction for you. Where how do you think this is going to end?
How do I think this is going to end? I don't know. It could go either way. It depends on how good Biden's prompter is, and on whether or not the mediator here asks real questions or just softballs stuff, which I predict he probably will. I think it's going to go much like any of the debates
Chris Wallace is hit or miss.
really go.
But
Chris, he is very hit or miss. I think he's going to pitch a lot of softball questions to Biden, and he's going to bring up a lot of the stuff that, social media and everybody really attacked Trump over on Trump's side of it.
Right.
I do not see this being middle of the road at all.
No.
But hey, they're on stage now.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the
because it
Senate
is.
to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first
Article 2,
question
Section
to
2.
both of you tonight.
Shall.
Why are you right
In
the
law,
argument you
shall
make,
is binding.
and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, good in every way. In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think
She really is quite
fantastic.
impressive.
We have plenty of time.
Honestly.
And that
Even if we
statement's
did
not
it
wrong.
after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We
She's
have a
gonna be
professor
better
at
than a
Notre
lot of
Dame,
people
highly
that served on
respected
that
by
court.
all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school.
Have
And,
another
we
one
just,
of him
won
on
the election,
Supreme
and therefore
Court.
we have the right
Yeah,
to choose her.
nice.
Be
And
still my
very few
heart.
people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They
He's
had Merrick
not
Garland.
wrong.
The problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
Not only the right,
Thank
the
you.
obligation. The obligation
Same
to do
question to
it.
you,
Shall.
Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
First of all,
The American
Ooh.
people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for
which they
the
did
President of the
4
United
years ago.
States.
well, they did.
Which they did
They're not
4
gonna
years
get
ago.
that
Yeah,
chance
2 years
now
ago and then
because
4
we're in
years
the middle
ago.
of an
Right,
election
yeah.
already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait.
No.
No.
We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is.
Negative,
Because
Ghost
that's the
Rider.
only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who
Right.
they elect as vice president. Yes. Now, what's at stake here is the president's
Looking
made
at
it
his
clear
notes.
he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on
Democrats-
that.
'Cause
He
it's
ran on
awful.
that, and
Democrats
he's been
do, too.
governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
Do it.
Which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court,
And make it more affordable.
And the
For
justice,
literally
and
everyone.
I have
Yeah.
nothing. I'm not opposed to the justice. She seems like a very fine person.
But you're
she's
opposed to
written
her.
before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional.
because it's not.
Because it's done.
The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed.
No.
How?
Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact,
What?
passed the Affordable Care
Wait,
Act.
what?
And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and
only
the Senate
appropriate
is
to do
Democrat
this.
or Republican, then he goes forward.
Because
If
it's
not, we should wait
constitutional to
until
do
February.
this.
All right.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly,
Ooh.
at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
Throwing
elected to the next
Ginsburg's
During that
words at
period
him.
of time,
This is gonna be good.
we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
And the
election's
100
already
million
started.
people, Joe, the 100 million
Joe.
people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly
knows
going
that.
to socialist.
Go
You're
ahead.
going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number
Biden.
one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that We expand Obamacare.
Yeah, because
and
it was
we
so
increase
great
it.
the first
We do
time.
not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will. Under
That's
my
what you said
proposal.
It's not what
last
you said,
time.
and it's not what
That
your
is-
party has said.
that is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your
That
party
is
wants to
simple.
go socialist
My
medicine.
party is
and
me.
socialist
Right
healthcare.
now, I am
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now.
What did he say?
He said they're going to
platform of the
dominate you,
Democratic
Joe.
Party
You
is
know
what
that.
It's
true.
In fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal.
Did
The
you
deal
hear-
is that
I am the
it's gonna
Democratic
wipe
Party.
out
I
pre-existing
am
disease.
the
By the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch.
We don't have that.
We don't
There-
have that
How
one.
many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down?
He actually did
the
get that
Affordable
number
Care
right.
Act?
He usually doesn't get his numbers right.
308,000
He got that number right.
Got fresh
military
meds.
people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And
this.
if you were here, it
Here's
wouldn't
the
be
deal.
200. It would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You didn't want me to ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which
no,
was heavily
Mr.
infected.
President,
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
You're not going
President,
to
as
shut
the
him.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade.
So-
That's
Right.
on the ballot as well in the court.
It should be.
And so that's also at stake right now.
Okay.
It should
so
be.
The election is all.
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is
you
it on the
said
ballot? It's not
you-
on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would
And
you
you
just
don't
be quiet
know
for a minute?
her view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't know
don't
her
know.
view.
Well, all right. All right.
I don't know.
Back here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So, on health care,
I think that's one for Trump.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week
Sleepy
after
Joe
the
gets
election
caught by a
in
right
which the
hook
Trump
from the president.
administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are
He's
seeking
reeling.
to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last
Because they
Let me-
want to
if
give
I-
good
if I-
health care.
If I may ask my question,
Finish
sir.
the question.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace
Because he's got a bunch of spineless
Obamacare.
Republicans in
I
the
have.
Well,
House and
I'll
Senate.
Got rid of the
And when I
individual
finish, I'm
mandate.
going to give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got
when
rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
Obama. That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was
It
the
is.
worst
I
part
didn't
of
ask
Obama.
you, sir.
Chris,
You're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obama.
Let me ask my
Well,
question.
I'll ask Joe.
The
The individual
I-
mandate was the most unpopular
Mr. Vice-
aspect of
Mr.
Obamacare.
Donald
Got
Trump
rid
is
of
now
it.
moderating
We
the
will-
debate.
I'm the moderator of this debate, and I would like you to let
Wow.
me ask my question,
Gosh
and then
dang
you
it.
can answer your
Go ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan
You already
to
said that.
replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Fine. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. Let me just tell you something. That there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going
Is-
with favored nations, which
Is it an
no
executive
president
order
has the
or is
courage
it
to do
symbolic?
because you're going against big
Those
pharma.
things are not
Drug
compatible.
prices will be
Right.
coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting
There's
health
shots
care. All the
fired.
Few
things
people
that
in the
we've done.
audience.
Insulin.
Shots
Give you an
fired.
example. Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water. You want to know
Water.
the truth. So cheap.
Water.
Take a look at all
Water.
of the drugs that what we're doing,
Extra
prescription
R in
drug
there.
prices. We're going to allow
Water.
our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say, this
of
is
what we
open
do.
discussion.
No,
let
but
me
this
ask
is
you about,
big.
this
This
you'll
is
be happy,
big stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make.
So the socialism
is
isn't
that that is
working. So
going
let's
to
add a
end private
capitalist
insurance
option
and will-
to make it work.
I ask you the question.
Right.
It will
Not what your
end.
party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance. and
Not what
create
your party
economic
says, by the way.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free. in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto, we call it. And that gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey, I'm not
saying
going
you
to
didn't agree?
listen to him. The fact of the matter
I'm
is,
not gonna listen
I beat
to
Bernie
him.
Sanders.
Not by much.
I'm here standing facing you.
Pocahontas would have left.
There's the
You
nickname.
would have lost every
Pocahontas.
All he
prize
knows how to
until
do is
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure, because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal.
With
the fact
what?
is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a
Nope,
liar.
not yet.
I just
Haven't,
wanna
haven't
make
heard one.
sure-
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your
I
Oh!
want to make sure.
Can you let him finish?
He doesn't know how to do that. He,
Trump's
you
slap.
picked the guy the wrong night at the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
let him-
There is no manifesto. Number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You
just
agreed
lost
with
the
Bernie
left.
Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
Absolutely.
folks, do you
agreed
have
to.
Oh man, this is a circus already.
do you have any do?
Well, it's a
Socialized
one-ring
medicine.
circus, and
I'll
it's
tell you
Donald
what,
Trump is
he
the ringmaster.
not for any help for people needing health care. Because
Bernie?
because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
yeah.
there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look.
There's
you now
20
and say
million
that's
people
what
on
he wants to
Obamacare
do.
now because you
Take it
forced them
away.
on
I want to give them
Obamacare.
better health
Right.
care at a
Moron.
much lower price
But-
because
and by the way, he
Obamacare
doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
already fixed it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you
is
realize
no
if you're
good,
both
Joe.
speaking at the
It's no
same
good,
time-
and it's too
Nobody can hear
expensive.
you.
Let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate.
Which was
we
great.
guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is, and that destroyed. That they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well? Or badly. If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people. Okay?
More importantly, his
I said,
little
you gotta
hand.
Run it so well.
I love his little
Just had a meeting with him.
hand
He said, the problem is, no matter
gestures.
how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster.
It is.
It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's what
So
his people
we
said.
do want to get rid of it. Chris, we want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
give
it, sir, but
something
I have to
cheaper and
give
better.
you roughly equal time.
Good.
Please
Right.
let the vice president talk.
Good.
Good.
He has no plan for health care. Of
course we do.
Please.
He sends out
Please.
wishful thinking. He
small
has
as-
executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug
have
costs
no
for
control.
anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has not.
Hope he's got a
Like
bottle of
almost
whiskey or
everything
something
else he
underneath
talks
that.
about.
He's gonna need it by the end of the
He
night.
does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I
against
have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here. If Senate Republicans go ahead
to the rabbit
and
hole.
confirm
Right.
Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court.
End the
adding
filibuster.
to the
I'm
9
for that.
justices
I'm
there.
for that,
You
too.
call this a distraction by the
it's
president, but in fact, it
unconstitutional.
wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in
Well, I'm
the
saying-
Ooh.
So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now.
Translation.
Vote and let
But
your senators know how
I
you
don't want to
how you
say
feel.
because I
Okay.
want to see how it
Vote
polls
now.
first.
But how are we
Make
supposed
sure
to
you, in fact,
vote
let people
if we don't know what your
who the
position
senator
is?
I'm not going to answer the question.
You need to answer the question.
The question is, the
radical
question,
left.
will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on-
man?
Listen, who's on your list, Joe?
This is so.
Gentlemen, I think
Shut up, man.
Pack the court.
we have
I'm not going to give a list.
we have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it?
It was actually.
It was actually.
Showed that you know
The
nothing.
People understand, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
People understand.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject, so
Dude.
try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases.
He's already
of
lost
coronavirus
it.
in the United
I'm
States.
never
More
doing
than
one of these again.
200,000 people
I'm actually
have
decently
died.
surprised in a good
After
way
we
with
produce
him so
a
far.
vaccine, experts say
He's
that
doing
it
pretty
could
good,
be
yeah.
months or even years before we come back
But
to
man, I haven't seen a
anything
beating this bad since I put a
approaching
banana down my
normal.
pants and turned a monkey
My
loose.
question for both of you is, based on
That's a
what you
visual
have
I don't
said
want.
and done so far, and
so
what you have
bad.
said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward?
Oh,
In
boy,
this
here we
case,
go.
the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes
Might
uninterrupted.
need something
Uninterrupted.
stronger than Dr. Pepper here.
200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have
Actually,
5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths.
and 22% of the total reported
people
infected
are contracting
compared to the rest of the world.
In addition to that,
Just FYI,
about
you know,
between
7 million
750
infected in the
people
U.S.,
dying.
33 million in the
When he
entire
was
world. That
presented
makes
with
us
that number, he said,
22% of the
"It
total
is
infected
what
in
it
the
is."
entire world.
You don't need to
Well, it
know
is
that.
what it is because
Which means
you
we're
are who
either
you are.
over-reporting or
That's
just
why it
reporting
is.
more
The
than
president
every other country.
has
Or
no
actually reporting.
plan.
Yeah, there's
he
that.
hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February
Hasn't
how
laid out
serious
anything?
this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it.
Biden's
he said
about
he
to
didn't
get
tell
his
us
ass
or give
handed
people
to
a
him.
warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people.
Yeah.
You
He
don't
said there's
panic.
other people
He
doing
panicked.
that. You
In addition to that,
jackwagon.
what did he
I-
do?
ooh, I hate this
He went
topic.
in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we
This
had
is
on the
gonna
ground
hurt.
in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great
'cause you
job
can't
Xi
trust
was
him.
doing. He said
Her.
we owe him a debt of gratitude
I don't remember.
for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out
Sir,
back
it's
in
his 2
March
minutes.
exactly
it's so
what we
wrong.
should be doing. And I laid
Yeah,
out
but he's
again
wrong.
in July what we should be doing. We should be
There was a
providing
simple
all the
wrong
protective
in there.
food
I heard
products.
it.
We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open.
The money that
Open
the House
schools.
has
It
been
costs a
holding
lot of
since the
money.
first time that they
You should
handed
get
it
of
out,
your
right?
bunker and get out of the sand trap and get
Yeah, and the
in
people
your
locked
golf
in
course and
because
go in the
your
Oval Office
party's
and bring
governors
together the
locked everyone
Democrats,
in.
Republicans, and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to
You
you,
have 2 minutes, sir.
if we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what
Right.
we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I
unrelated
should have
to
closed
your
our country.
COVID.
No, just
Wait a
start.
minute.
It's his 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country
unrelated
because you
to the
thought it was
COVID.
too.
It
was
came from
terrible.
China.
That
You
is
wouldn't have closed it for
the
another
COVID.
2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked
true.
with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors
take
said
a
I
look.
did a
All the way up to
phenomenal job.
Cuomo.
Most of
Yep.
them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made
Overreacted,
ventilators.
if
and now
anything,
we're weeks away
honestly.
from a vaccine.
Yeah.
We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me
The
bad
reason that I
press
know those
because
numbers
that's
that
the
I
way
was
it is,
throwing out
unfortunately.
earlier
But let me just
is
say
actually
this,
because
I
of a
don't care.
CNN article I read this
But I'll
morning
tell you, Joe, you could never
talking
have done the
about
job
how
that we did.
America
You don't have
has
it in your
20%
blood.
of the
You could have
world's
never done
deaths.
that job.
Oh.
but they
know how to do the
neglected
job.
to give
I know how to
the
get the
world's
job.
overall
Well,
infection
in
number.
swine flu,
And
H1N1,
if you look
were
at
a
all the
disaster.
numbers,
Your
it
own
proves
chief
that
of staff said you were a
14,000
we are
14,000 people
actually
died, not
dying
200,000. There was
less
no economic
from this
recession.
than everybody else, according
There
to
was
like
no
just straight
recession.
reported numbers.
Right.
Like they
There was
have
no
more
one-
deaths
there
per
was no- we didn't
reported
shut down the
infection
economy.
than we do.
This
Yeah.
is his economy that's being he shut down. The reason
No,
shut
he did
down
not.
is because look,
No, he
you
didn't.
folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID?
Nobody I
How
know.
many of you were in a situation
Nope.
where you lost your mom or dad?
I know tons of people that have had it and recovered, though.
I have a- I have a empty chair at the larger family table for Thanksgiving that
And by the way,
from
your
a
own- his
family
own-
member
his
that
own
died from a
CDC
disease
director
that I
says
couldn't go
we could
visit
lose
at the
as
hospital
many as
because
another 200,000
everyone wanted to
people
shut
between
things
now
down.
and the
We
end
have
of
a
the
we
year.
have an empty
And he
table
hopefully said,
or
if
an
we
empty
just
chair at that
wear a
table
mask,
too
we can
because
save
of a
half
family
those
member that died
numbers.
from cancer.
Just a
Yeah.
mask. And by
Who
the
we
way,
weren't allowed to
in
visit
terms
in his
of
last
the
days, like the
whole
last
notion
2
of
months of his
vaccine,
life because
we're
of
for a
COVID.
vaccine, but
Yeah,
we- I
'cause
don't
you might
trust
get him
at
sick.
all,
Because
nor
we
do
might
you.
get
I
him
know
sick.
you
Well, he
don't.
might get
But
us
we
sick because
trust
he
as a
actually did test
scientist.
positive for
We
it.
trust Dr.
He had
Johnson.
he had
Johnson.
cancer and like 3 other diseases. Tested positive for COVID, recovered from COVID, and then died from cancer.
Touched on one of the
Right.
two of the
So,
questions I'm
you
going
know,
to ask.
there's that.
Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your 2 words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slawi, the head
the
of your
same guy that last
operation
week we
Warp
talked about
Speed,
waving
has
his
said
mask
exactly
around
the
while
same
talking about
thing.
having to
Are
wear
they
a
both
mask.
wrong?
Oh,
I've spoken
yeah.
to the
That's
companies
the
and we
fun.
can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've
He's
spoken
not
to
wrong.
Not
Pfizer.
wrong.
I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call
So
them
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what
that
I
the
call them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slawi?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just
He
like
said
Dr.
it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking about
after
when it's
that.
generally available, not when it
Well,
will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This is
delivering
the same
vaccine.
man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is
Not
the
what he
same
said.
thing.
Not what he said.
Sarcastically,
That was
you
him.
know that.
I-
That was said
Both of those are
And so
not
here's the
exactly what
deal.
he said.
This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up.
Hold on. You just
I
said
want to pick up on this
that
question,
earlier,
though.
though,
You
that
say the public
there's no miracle
can
coming.
trust the scientists, but they
But
can't trust
pray
President
God
Trump.
that
In fact,
the
you said
vaccine
that again
comes.
tonight. Your running
Because
mate, Senator Harris, goes
Biden has
further,
control of whether or
saying
not
the
we
public
get
health experts,
miracles.
quote,
yeah.
will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out.
What?
He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying you
Everybody
can't, or
knows.
Senator
And-
Harris is saying you
no,
can't trust the
No,
scientists.
well, no, you can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can trust the
No,
scientists.
she did.
Public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and Fauci-
scientists that are in
and
charge.
by the way,
They will have
and
the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still
looks
hasn't
like,
even acknowledged
they drove
that he knew
part of
this
Joe's
was
training
happening, knew how
was
dangerous it
look
was
at the
gonna be
camera as
back
often
in
as possible.
February, and he didn't even tell you. He's
Talk
on
to the
record
people through the
as saying
camera.
it.
That was his coaching.
He panicked, or he just looked at the stock market. One of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
Okay, personal
And
attacks
you
I'm not a
would have
fan
had- let me
of.
just tell you something, Joe.
I mean, that was funny,
If
but
you would have had
come on,
the
stick to the
I was put through. I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
see, he-
and it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Forward to it.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you
Don't
have
attack the
taken very
people,
different
attack
approaches,
the
and
policy,
This is going
yeah.
to affect
He
how
got
the
to it
virus
eventually,
is
pointed
handled going
again at the
forward
47
by
years of
whichever of you
public,
ends up
quote,
becoming the
service.
next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to
His
provide
plan is
not
let-
have a plan.
businesses
His plan
the
is let the
ability to
states
have
do
the
it.
money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the.
It's not the president's job to have that plan. It is the individual state's job to have that plan.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi and Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with the Senate, and he sits on his golf course, and well, I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants
If he
to
could
shut
remember
down
how to
this
play, at least.
country. And I want to keep it open. And we
You
did a
get-
great
he
thing
just
by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second. Just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November
I want to
3rd.
move on to another
Because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to
threat.
another subject.
gotta
Which
respond.
is- I
But
wanna
those
move-
I've got to
states-
respond to
those
that.
states
Move on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
President
shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are okay.
of
You have
masks?
to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to, but I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rally.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from me, and he shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say this.
Vice President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The
But
Congress.
I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks,
And for the rest of
between
ever.
now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said the
no
opposite.
serious
true.
person said the opposite.
Yes, they have.
Well, look at
Serious
Multiple
person.
times.
Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did not
I
say
want to
the
ask you, we got
opposite.
a
He did say the
minute left
opposite.
in this
Masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both
masks.
about one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much
That is a
smaller
caveat.
events
Because
with
nobody will show up.
people with
Nobody shows up to his rally.
All right. In any case, why are you holding the big rallies?
That's
why
terrible.
you not? You goes first, sir.
That's funny.
People want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you not
I'm
worried
a
about
job
the
as
president?
president,
to
and I'll have
say.
25, 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
for
not worried
hangars,
about
and we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issue?
people.
Oh, man.
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. and we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative effect.
No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect, and we've had 35, 40,000 people at these rallies.
Just quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the
How's it
social
irresponsible if
distancing,
they haven't
the
had a
people wearing
negative
masks,
effect?
Basically encourage them not to.
If I remember right,
he's a
the
fool.
initial
If you could get the
study
crowds, you
thing,
would have
whatever,
done the
said
same
there was
thing,
going to
but
be
you can't. Nobody can.
7 million
Move on to the
deaths
economy.
minimum in the
Gentlemen,
U.S.,
can we move on to the
right?
economy?
We've had 7 million
The economy
infections.
Is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster
So-
than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the
They
unemployment
either have to
rate
admit
fell
that
to
that thing was
8.4%
wrong,
last month.
which the guy
Federal
that did it
Reserve
said it's
says the
wrong.
hit to growth, which is going to be
Or
there,
just ignore it
is
like
not
they've
going
been
to be
doing.
nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference
the heck
does that
how does
mean?
How the hell does it have a
to
K
the American
shape?
people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy
The
in
Dow
history.
has
We
gone
closed
back
it down
in
because
time.
of the China plague. And the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard.
Maybe
psychologically
it's
to do.
it's
He
a
didn't think
K
we should
shape
close
because
it
there's
down,
the
and he was
bottom
wrong.
line and then it's a
And
V
again,
on top.
2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One
So it's a-
person is too
a
much.
V-shaped
Should have never happened from China.
recovery.
But what happened is we
yeah.
closed it down
Maybe.
and now we're reopening and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before.
That is impressive
And he wants
numbers,
to
though I
close
will
down
say
he
a
will
lot
shut
of
it
that
down
is
again.
just
He will
places
destroy this
opening
country.
again
We had
that
a
were
lot of
already
people between
established
drugs
and
alcohol
all that stuff.
and depression.
It's
Well,
impressive,
it's-
but
shutting
it's
it down.
It's
You
still
can't
impressive.
have it happening in
It's
some of
still
these
impressive
Democrat-run
because of the
states
number
where
of
they have these
businesses that have had to
tough
close their door
shutdowns.
permanently
And I'm telling
because
you it's
of
because
all
they
of
don't want
this.
to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do
people
whatever
started
they want.
doing all that
But they
before
gotta
the
open
government
these
stepped
states
Do you
up.
think Steven
When you
Crowder
look
and
at
his crew
North
are
Carolina,
completely
when you
drunk
look
yet?
at these
Oh, they're
governors
probably-
overseas, Pennsylvania,
They're
Michigan,
probably
and a
needing to
couple
call
others.
an ambulance.
You got to open these states up. It's not
probably
Alcohol poisoning?
It's like being in prison. And you
They
look
got
at
some
what's
poisoning going
with
on
divorce.
now.
Jeez.
Look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing.
Look at what's going on with alcoholism.
This guy will close down the whole country
Well,
and destroy
speaking
our
of which.
country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right, your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis
Like
done
you.
very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home,
See,
you folks
camera.
living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing?
Don't talk to Trump.
This
Talk
guy
to the
paid
people. That's what he was doing. That was his training.
$750 in taxes.
Remember your training.
No, sir, it's
It's
his
the wrong state.
Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people
feel like
who
there's this
have
Great
lost their
Depression that
jobs
might have-
are those people who have been on the front lines.
Might have.
Those
Well,
people who
and
have been
can-
saving our lives. Those people
You
who
can't
have
really
gone out there and died.
blame
People
him
who
for that,
cleaned
though. That's
themselves
the
out to make
coronavirus.
sure
Like, that's
that we
them
could
shutting
all
everything
try
down.
to
Yeah.
make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you
last
have
I checked, in
almost half the
January, it was
states in
Obama's
America with a
economy.
significant
So-
increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention
not
of
both?
doing anything about making it better for you all at home.
Did you
in
see the
terms of
numbers
your
this
health
morning
and
for
your
coronavirus?
safety. Schools.
Which
Why are
ones?
schools open?
Like,
Because
all
it
of
costs
them?
a lot of money to open them safely. They
how
were gonna
everywhere
give
is
his
just suddenly
administration gonna give
spiking
the
after
teachers and
Florida
school
opens?
students masks.
Suddenly
They decided,
spiking
no, couldn't do that because
is
it's not a
our
national
active cases are
emergency.
down
It's not a national
12,000
emergency.
over
They've
the
done
entire
nothing to
country
help
since
small
yesterday.
businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone.
Yeah.
We've
We
been
ought to
in a
get
decline
on
for
the
over a
job and
month.
take care of the needs
There
of
are
American
less
people
active
so we
cases
can open
in the
safely.
U.S. every
Time's up,
day
sir. We are going to get to the,
I
we're
have
gonna-
to respond
for the
to
last
that.
You
month.
both had 2 minutes.
So
sir.
what's your point?
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, no, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York.
True.
It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their
It's
places
just people are
open. They wanna
mass
get back to
exodusing
their
out of there
original-
because if
they
you don't
already
have to
care
work
safe,
in the
but they want
office,
their schools
why
open.
stay
I'm the one
in
that
New
brought
York?
back football. By the
And
way,
then
I brought back
you got no one at the
football.
office. You got
It
no
was
one at
me,
the
and I'm very
restaurants.
happy to do it. And
All right,
people of
let's-
Ohio are very proud of me. And you know
We're
what
gonna
I
get
found
back-
out when he took the
Gentlemen, we're
phony
going to
ad?
get to your economic plan.
Trump is really
going
good at patting
forward in a
himself on
moment,
the
but
back.
first,
He
Mr.
is really good
President,
at patting himself
as
on
you
the
well
back.
know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year
Art
you
of the
were elected
self-appeal.
president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay
here we go.
a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750
He's
in
not gonna answer.
federal income taxes each of those 2
I
years?
I
don't
paid
think he
millions
legally
of
can.
dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid
returns.
$38 million.
He's technically
one year.
not
I paid
allowed to show them the
27
tax
show us your
returns
tax
or
returns. I went-
talk about it
you'll see it as
publicly,
soon as
really,
it's
like with
finished. You'll see it.
specifics,
You know, if you wanted
because
to,
he's
go to
currently
the Board of
in
Elections.
audit.
Yeah.
There's
It's just like a
118 page or so report
court case.
that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good, and we have a very, I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking
company.
you a specific question, which
But
is...
let me tell you-
I understand all of that.
Release your
I
tax
understand all of that.
return. But let me-
No, Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016
It's none of your
and
business
2017?
is the
Millions
answer.
of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750?
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to
When?
see it. But let me just
Inshallah?
tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something that it
When
was
it's
the
not
tax laws.
an audit
I don't
anymore.
want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the
Yep.
laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We built the building and we get tax credits like the hotel.
The look on Biden's face. Wait, which one?
By the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired
Gosh.
right after that happened. But
Vice
that's
President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher on the money a school
Makes?
teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does
is.
take advantage of the tax code. That's
Yep.
why
Yeah,
I'm
I
going
do
to
too.
eliminate the Trump tax
Yeah,
codes. And we're
I
gonna-
hire a
we're
guy
gonna
to help me
eliminate
make
those
sure I
tax
get every
and
penny
make
out that
sure
I'm not
that we
supposed to be
invest in
paying.
the people who, in fact,
too.
need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over
Yeah,
the
stop taking our money.
last
Yeah,
25
quit
years?
taking our money. That would
Why
help.
didn't you do it
Help a
over
lot.
the
You weren't
25
president
years?
screwing things up.
You were a senator. and
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
no.
let me just tell you,
No.
Joe, I've done
Negative.
more in 47 months. I've done more
Woodrow
than you've done in
Wilson.
47 years, Joe. Including
Gentlemen.
fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care
We're
of your
talking,
vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan
is
if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes.
Don't
You
be
propose
scared.
More than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes.
Replace swear words with
on
Disney
individuals
music.
making more than $400,000 a year, and
Now it's
on
rated G.
corporations. President Trump says that kind of an increase in taxes
PG.
is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from
5 years
ships
ago, I remember
to steel to
certain
buildings
candidate.
and the like. And
Oh,
under
he's
my
standing next to you.
proposal, we're
Said
gonna make
exactly
sure
the same
that
thing.
Every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But
in
respectfully,
America.
sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
Well, by the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to
No, you're not.
The corporate tax, 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 19.
That's not eliminating, that's increasing.
Federal, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it
Billions
before
of
when you were
dollars.
vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
Right.
your
I got
tax
it.
proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed.
And
like
the
it's never boomed.
economy is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free
stupid.
market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes.
They don't pay a penny in
Let me-
taxes.
but
Yeah,
in-
because
but in
they have
Obama's-
funds
you talk
that
about
are
the economy booming.
that they
It
paid
turns out
into
that in Obama's final
after
3
tax, so they
years
don't
as
have to pay
president,
taxes
more jobs
after.
were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery since economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also,
bad.
they took over
It was
something
bad.
that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty
Half
of
of the
companies that are
companies,
already here, they'll leave for
hardly any
other
companies
places.
have
They will
poured in
leave,
here.
and you will have a
Have it.
depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look,
Mr.
we
President.
inherited
Hashtag accurate.
the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy.
No, you
No.
didn't.
It wasn't
He blew
booming.
It boomed
It
after he
wasn't
got
booming. It
did
was
the
it
tax
was
stuff.
the weakest recovery
Well, sir, is it
since
fair to, wait, is it fair to say he blew it when, in
When
fact, there was
COVID came in.
when there was record low unemployment
Yeah.
before COVID?
Yeah,
Wow.
Because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole.
No, it didn't.
Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse me,
Number
Chris.
I work in
Number two.
manufacturing
Number
and
three.
no.
They said it would take. No, you're a number two.
No.
Negative.
Chris, they said it would
This
take
guy
a
is
miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We
Part
did
of my
not do that.
standard fare.
I'm the guy that
He
brought
totally
back
gave
the
up on
automobile industry.
manufacturing.
All right, let him.
We
No,
brought
you
back- I
didn't
was asked to
bring back anything.
Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
No, they're
the
not.
best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies
No,
came in
you're-
from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals
He's
are the
done a
same
lot.
way. He talks about these great trade deals.
'cause
He
the
talks about the art of the deal. China's
gosh.
perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before.
So China
We have
is the enemy?
highest trade
Or-
deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch. Down
All right,
18%.
gentlemen.
It's because China ate your lunch.
Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out. He takes
Oh,
out billions of dollars.
snap!
Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also,
Simply
while
not
we're at it,
true.
why is
No, it is
just out of
true. Every
curiosity,
word of that was
the
true.
mayor of
Very
Moscow's
true.
wife gave your son $3.5 million.
That's
What
not
did he
true.
do to deserve it?
That
What
is-
did he
Bought a
do
hooker.
I mean,
None of
Ask
that
your
is
question
true.
and answer. If-
None of that is true.
Oh,
It's
really? He
totally,
didn't get $3.5 million?
Mr. President,
It's
Mr.
totally-
President, please.
totally
ask the question.
discredited. totally discredited. By the
No,
way-
it's not.
Well, wait,
totally
No,
you
it's
got
not
$3.5
discredited.
billion,
Not discredited at all.
Vice-
He got $3.5
Actually,
billion.
it has hard
That is not
evidence,
true.
proof.
Really?
Mr. President,
There's paper
Mr.
trails
it's an open
to both
discussion.
Ukraine
Please,
and
It's a
China.
fact.
Well,
And there's a phone call
it's an
from
issue. Let the
Biden
President
to
answer.
Ukraine
Discredited.
Did
There
Bruce
was
about a whole quid pro quo
183,000
thing.
a month
Never heard that phrase
with
before.
no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President,
no
my
job.
son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
and
Mr.
the only
President,
guy that
let
did
him
something-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth.
No, you don't.
His position has been totally, thoroughly.
Well, I'm sure you
By
do,
who?
but you're not going to share it.
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our
because they refuse to
allies, by
talk
the
about it
World
'cause they're
Bank,
embarrassed.
by everyone has discredited.
No, they haven't.
Matter of fact, even the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
Under
ask you
oath.
this.
And-
Stop
under oath.
beating him.
Mr. I'm listening to you.
People under-
Leave your older brother alone.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I did
really?
it
I'd like to
honorably.
know who they are.
Every the list of the people who testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did
Some
a good
because
job.
some people don't do
Well,
it.
Because they were
here's the-
corrupt as hell.
With you,
Go
they
ahead.
say-
You get
here's
the,
the
wait a
deal.
minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey,
this
let me
person.
just say, Joe,
No. I'm Mr. President.
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply.
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 billion from
Did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night.
No,
His
you couldn't.
family's
My
already-
family,
No, let him go.
my
Let him
family
already
lost
wrote.
a fortune by coming down and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's
Every-
such a,
right
that's
here.
true.
That's such
Every
a great.
single one of them lost.
This is not about my
President.
family or his family. It's
Sorry to
about
do this to
your
you, buddy, but I need to
family.
take a break.
American He
No,
doesn't.
nothing.
That's
Fine.
not true. It doesn't
Just,
want to talk
you know,
about
use the soundboard
what
for a second.
you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about. here.
All right,
It's not about here.
that's the end of the segment.
take
We're,
the money.
we're moving on.
There's- it
We're
didn't
moving
take
on.
that.
Vice President,
Chris,
no.
can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
I-
He
I-
stood up.
No,
he stood up,
the answer to
and
the
he
question is no.
threatened Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you don't
That
get rid
is
of the
absolutely
You know what? You're
not
stop.
true.
You're on tape doing it.
You're going to
On
have
tape.
True.
Gentlemen.
Is-
I hate to raise
Chris,
my voice,
he's
but
on
it seems to
tape.
be, why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the
That's a
deal.
good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak
This
with
is-
fewer
this is
interruptions. I'm
nuts.
appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
Well, that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less than plenty. No, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race was when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look
She's
like
the,
coming out
current
of the fields
viewer?
carrying torches,
Yeah,
their veins bulging.
no, she's watching the Crowder
Screaming,
stream.
Oh,
just
So
spewing
she's got
anti-Semitic
Crowder on one
bile,
screen and CNN on the
accompanied
other.
by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed, and they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president's ever said anything like that.
It is whose
Now-
Exactly.
sentence,
Finish
sir.
that statement.
Second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd
Race
was killed, when
relations.
Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on them so we could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible.
That
And then
is
what
A
happened
peaceful
after
protest that
Not
burned a
That
church
very
across the
church
street
said
and
that it was a
harassed
disgrace.
Secret
The
Service
general who
agents,
was
and
with him
Secret
said
Service
he
agents
all he
retaliated
ever wants to do is
with tear
divide
gas.
people,
That
not unite people at all.
that incident,
This is a president who has used everything as a
And
dog
then
whistle.
your
to
other
try to
Democratic,
generate racist
cohorts
hatred, racist division.
went
This is a
to,
man who, in fact, if you talk about
whatever
helping
assembly hall with their
One
African
in
shawls and
1,000 African
knelt in
Americans has been
solemnity
killed
just to
because of the
have
the
African
coronavirus.
people point out
And if he doesn't do
you're wearing
something
shawls that
quickly, by the
enslaved
end of the year,
Africans.
1 in 500
Right.
will have been killed.
Yeah.
1 in 500 African Americans. This man is the savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to.
If you don't
look
vote
at
for
what
me,
he
you ain't
talks
black.
about. You have to look at what he
Right.
did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
No, it hasn't.
So
What you
President
did was
Trump, you have 2
disastrous
minutes.
for the
Why
African American
should
community.
Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
he
racism.
did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Jefferson.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator.
And Donald Trump
and
actually
I'm letting
stayed
people
quiet.
out of
Well,
jail now that you
mostly
have
quiet
treated the
for those 2
African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that. Because you look back at your testimony over the years, you
Corn
called
Pop
them
was a
lot worse
bad
than that. As
dude.
far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio,
New York.
I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in
let's
a
say
half an
let's
hour,
not
but they
defund the
won't
police.
do it because they're run
Can
by
you say
radical
that
left
phrase out
Democrats.
loud?
If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place
it.
you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming
Oh,
in
yeah.
the
Yep,
following
there it
day,
is.
and they
Sheriff
put
of
up their
Kenosha
hands
County
and we got
endorses
back
Trump.
Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left, and they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand
Be interesting
law
to
and
see
order,
if he
and you're
actually
afraid
can
to even
respond to
say it.
that
All right. I want to return to
in
the
a
question
coherent
of race.
way.
Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided
Oh,
not
no.
to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced.
And where are
But
those
look,
areas in this
The vast majority
country?
of police officers are good, decent,
just
honorable men
curious.
and women. They risk
Who's
their
in
lives
charge of
every
those
day
areas?
to take care of us. But there are some bad apples, and when they occur, when they find them, they have to
So,
be sorted out.
wait,
They have to be held
Is it
accountable.
systemic or is it
They
a
have to be
handful
held
of bad
accountable.
apples?
And what I'm gonna
Because
do as
yes,
President of the
what you
United
just
States is
said,
call a
it is not.
together and an
It
entire
doesn't- it
group
doesn't
of people
jive.
at the
It's
White
systemic
House.
apples.
Well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have
They're
a
even
system
less happy to
where
see what's
people are
happening
held
to their own
accountable.
people.
And
Right.
by the way, violence in
Their fellow
response is
officers.
never appropriate. Never appropriate.
Ooh,
Peaceful
he just
protest
lost the radical
violence
left.
is never appropriate.
All right, Ms.
What is peaceful
President-
protest? When they run through the middle of the
President-
town
President Trump-
and burn down your
President Trump,
stores and kill people all
President
over the
Trump,
place?
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful
protest?
President
No,
Trump,
it's
I'm not
not, but
asking-
you say it is.
I did
President
not
Trump,
say
I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal
I
agencies
have never
to end
felt as
racial
bad
sensitivity
for a
training
moderator
that
as I
is
do
white
for this
privilege and
guy.
critical
It's like
race
wrangling
theory.
two
Why
5-year-olds.
did you decide
what was his name
to
again?
do that,
Chris?
to end
Chris Wallace.
racial
Chris Wallace.
sensitivity training, and do you believe
Do
that
you
there is
believe?
systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was
Yep.
a radical revolution that was taking place
Yep.
in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
Is radical,
and he would know.
What is
Oh, it
radical
was totally
about
racist.
racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of
Because
dollars
critical
to
race theory
teach
is racist.
Very bad
That's why.
ideas, and frankly,
And
very
Marxist.
sick ideas.
Which
and really,
Marx was
they were
racist.
teaching
Yes,
people
very,
to hate our country.
very racist.
And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen.
He called his
We
son-in-law
have to go back
monkey
to
or
the core
gorilla or
values of
something
this
like that
country.
because
They were teaching
mixed skin
people
color.
that our country is a horrible place. It's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that.
Yes, they are.
He's a
yeah,
racist.
there's lots of videos
Here's
that
the
show
deal.
that.
I know
He's a
what-
racist.
Let him finish.
Wow, there you go.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning.
So
to
why
them.
is it mainly
It's
white
important
people
that
rioting
know.
in the
they
streets
Don't want to. Many people
for
don't want
black
to hurt
injustice?
other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a
But
gigantic
why
difference
is it
in the
that
way a
white
child
people are
is
told
able
that
to
they're
grow up and
racist
have
from
a
birth?
sense of self-esteem.
In critical race
It's
theory.
a little bit like how
Yeah.
this guy and his friends look
You
down
merely
on so many
adopted
people.
racism.
They look down
Was
their
born in
nose on
it.
people like
Molded
Irish
by
Catholics
it.
like me and grew up in Scranton. They look
I
down
didn't
on
see
people who
clarity
don't
until
have
I was
money.
already
They
a
look
man.
down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color.
I didn't grovel at
We're
one's
all
feet until I was
Americans.
already a
The only way
man.
We're going to bring this country together.
Terrible.
Is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together.
Right. We're gonna
We
bring
can
everybody
take
together
this
by
on and we can
dividing
defeat
them.
Racism
Vice
in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division.
Yep.
There was hatred. You look at Ferguson. You go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now. But the reason
Yeah, that's a
Democrats
stretch.
that run these cities don't want to talk like you about
I mean,
law
if you
and
leave
order.
the riots
Violent
out,
crime.
maybe.
Violent
Right.
Are
crime.
you in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are you in
it, and a
favor
little
of
bit
law and order? Go ahead,
Yes, I'm
say
in
it.
favor.
You
Everybody's
asked a
in favor
question,
of
let him finish.
Law and order.
Loses
Law
left.
and
Let
order.
him- let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the
Okay.
matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more
he
in
had-
ours.
All right,
Went
we're
down.
down.
He is
You're,
president of
Mr.
the
President,
United
you're going
States of America.
We
Mr.
were
President,
breaking every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because
And
we're
the
now going to
excuse
talk
me,
about law and order.
Places we had trouble.
We're now going to talk about Law and Order.
That's exactly my
It's a
question.
great show. It's one of the best shows I've ever seen.
This summer particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic
You believe that
mayors
season
and
finale?
governors,
You believe it?
but in
Can you
fact,
believe
there
it?
is equivalent
Broke all the
strikes
records.
in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime.
Republican
It is
cities.
crazy what's going on.
Those
And he doesn't
are
want to
not
show up
Republican
in Chicago
cities.
Negative.
because he'll
Negative.
lose his radical left supporters, and once he does that,
Hasn't
it's over
been
with. But
for-
if he ever
off the
got
top
to
of my
run
head,
this
I'm thinking
country,
at least
and they ran it the way he
4
would want to
decades,
run it, we
at
would
least.
have
We would
our
run it
suburbs
the
would be
way-
gone. By the way,
Suburbs.
our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've
He
never
would
seen.
know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs
He would not.
so much
I was
better.
raised.
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was
So much
raised in the suburbs. This is not
Were ya?
1950. All these dog whistles on racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past.
So there's not systemic
what really is a
racism?
threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment.
They're dying
being
in the
flooded. They're being burned out
cities.
because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden,
I've got this
Bernie
weird, like,
Sanders
thumping
task force,
feeling right
you talked
here in the
about,
top of my head.
Reimagining policing.
It's a
First of all, what is
minor
reimagining
aneurysm.
policing?
Minor
Don't worry
aneurysm.
about it.
Do you support?
It means
Let me, if I might finish
when
the
the neck
question.
veins start
What does
bulging when I
reimagining
should worry.
policing mean? And do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, the local police.
There it is.
Funding, and his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need
Yeah, 'cause
more
it's local,
assistance.
not federal.
They need when they show up
I thought
for a
you don't want
9/11
federal
call to
intervention
have
in
someone with
police.
them as a
We don't want
psychologist or
federal intervention in
psychiatrist
police.
to keep
So
them from
it's
having
good
to
that
use
he's cutting
force
federal
and be
budget
able
to
to talk
police.
people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people.
literally
in the
what he
communities.
was
That's
doing
when
with
crime
that.
Went down. It didn't go up. It went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what
in
they're
prevent-
talking about, Chris. That's not what
that's
he's talking about
exactly-
defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law
Would you-
support.
look-
He has no law enforcement
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go
Look,
ahead.
look.
Think. We have time.
We don't have time
We
to do
have
that.
time. We don't have time to do that.
We don't have time to name
law
one.
enforcement group that came out and
I think,
supported
gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the
There
moderator's
aren't. I don't
role,
think
and
there
I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent.
Dude.
In Portland, Oregon, especially, we
this
had
is-
more than 100 straight days
This is
of
painful to
protests,
I don't know
watch.
who's getting
which
a
I
worse
think you would agree.
beating,
You talk about peaceful
Biden or
protests,
Wallace.
Many of those.
I don't know either.
Mr. Vice President,
I don't.
He's
you
getting
say
secondhand
that people
beatings.
who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now. Have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland,
these guys
or the
need to go to
Democratic
a,
governor of Oregon, and said, hey,
battered
you gotta
individual
stop this,
group and-
bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop.
Maybe they should
days
find the
and
one that
months
Mike
of
Tyson's
violence.
wife is in because it's about that level.
I don't hold public office.
Mike Tyson.
A former vice president. I've made it
You know,
clear.
he said
I've
that
made
the
it clear
person
in my
that took
public
his best
statements
punch
that
was
the
his
violence should be
wife.
prosecuted. It should be prosecuted. Anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never called
prosecuted.
for the people, the leader.
What the
excuse me,
crap,
sir.
man?
You've never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can,
It's kind of
in
weird
fact,
for me to watch
take
this
care of
because
it
I've
if you
got
just stay
3
out
instances
the
of
way.
this
Okay.
in my
Oh,
field of
really?
view.
Oh, really?
All of them are the
Sir,
same
wait,
thing.
I asked him a
Marshall
question.
They're
moved
just ever so
the
slightly
young
off on
man
their
in the
timing.
middle of the street and
Right?
they shot him. And for 3 days,
President Trump,
Portland
President
wouldn't do
Trump,
anything. I
please
had to send
interrupt
in
him.
the U.S. Marshals.
President
They
Trump,
took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots
Former
and
for a
chaos
reason.
and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that.
I don't think she
But
said
here's
that.
Well, here's the point. The point is
We
that
got the Googles here.
that's what he is, keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, every single solitary
Okay,
time.
and to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly
Well, wait,
criticized.
I have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His statement.
repeatedly.
Wait,
you have
just 1
no,
second.
you've been talking
You
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would
no,
love
you
to
know,
end it.
sir.
I would love to end it, and
You know,
we
if
would
you want to
very
switch seats.
Very quickly.
If you want to
I'm
switch
saying,
The
seats,
National Guard would be
don't
over
give
there,
him
no
that
problem.
option.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the
So I looked up
the
the
Vice
Kellyanne Conway
President for
thing real
not
quick.
specifically calling out Antifa
She did say that.
and other
The
left-wing
context
extremist groups.
is
But are you willing tonight
She's
to
pointing out
condemn
that
white supremacists
all of this
and
is
militia
Democrats
groups
letting
and
this happen
to
in their
say
cities.
that
It's
they
very clear
need
who
to
should be in
stand
charge.
down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in
Context
Kenosha,
matters.
And as we've seen in
Context
Portland.
matters.
Are you
I'm
willing
prepared
to do that.
specifically
Sorry,
do
Joe.
it? Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you
If
saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
What's he
You wanna
supposed to
call
say?
him- what do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists
Who
and
would
white
you like me to condemn?
White
Proud Boys.
supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is a
threat
left-wing
of
problem.
white
Go ahead, sir.
supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
you got it.
It's an
Not
organization.
That's what his
It is an
FBI
organization.
His
Okay.
FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna-
you know what?
No,
He's
no,
wrong.
we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're
Everybody
moving.
gives
When
you
a bat
advice
hits
in
you
your
over the head, that's
administration.
not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is bad.
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas. that are-
Antifa is a dangerous,
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When a
in 2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a
Mr.
second
President,
term,
I'm going to ask you a
ask a
question.
question.
generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President
Serenity
Biden,
now.
would like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, "Don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to the alternative." And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today
I mean,
with Hillary
you know,
Clinton, where it was a whole
you
big
throw in the
con
hurdles,
job.
sure.
But despite going through all of these things,
Yeah.
we have
You
to
got an
fight
argument there.
Both flanks and
I mean,
behind me
you know,
and
aside
above.
from
There has never been
Lincoln
an administration
and
that's done what I've done.
Washington
The greatest, before COVID
and-
came in, the greatest economy in history.
His
lowest
caveat is within
unemployment
3
numbers.
years.
Everything
That's
was
true.
good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling. And they were saying, it's time maybe, and then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including
wave,
Space
point.
Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people
VA
died because
is
they didn't have proper health
a
care.
monstrosity,
He was
and
a
it
mess.
is
And we now got a
awful, and it should probably
91%
be killed with
approval rating
fire.
Well, don't
at the
insult
VA. Our
monstrosities
vets.
like
We take
that.
care of our
I know,
vets.
right?
But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president, but I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term,
Fine, sir.
300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump?
this
You have 2
president-
minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker,
Negative.
Nope.
poorer,
No.
Negative.
more
No.
divided,
No.
and more
But-
violent.
Well,
When I
that
was-
one, but that's
Not
more the
him.
media than him.
We inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy.
No, you didn't.
No.
And he
Negative.
caused a recession. With
Negative,
regard
no.
to being weaker. The fact is that I've gone head to head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty.
I went
on
head
the
to
heads
head
of
with
American
Putin and
soldiers
gave him
to
what he
send
wanted,
every-
No.
is what I just
Okay.
heard.
That's
And by the way,
Mr.
my
President,
son.
wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted.
campaign
your
agreed.
side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word.
That I
you
can
add
agree
back-
with.
No,
He's
I'm
a
not
person
asking.
that's
That
not
was a
telling
rhetorical
the truth, that's
question.
all.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes, you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, We're poor. The
Thirdly,
billionaires have gotten much more wealthy.
so is
By
everybody
a
else.
tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in
No,
more
I didn't.
trouble than
No.
you were before.
Actually,
In
I
terms
got
of
more.
being more violent.
yeah,
When we were in office,
My,
there was
my paycheck is
15%
now
less
bigger
violence
without
in
getting
America
a
than there
raise
is
than it
today.
was.
Yeah.
He's president
4
of the
years
United
ago.
States.
And I
It's on
had a
his
great
watch.
job
And
opportunity
with
opened up
regard to
because
more divided,
of
the nation
things.
can't
So-
stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the
Manufacturing,
way you
by the
talk
way,
about the
that's,
military,
doesn't exist in the
way
US
you talk
according to
about
Joe.
them being losers and being and just
He
being
said
suckers.
something that Crowder
My
doesn't
son
like.
Was in Iraq. He spent a year
Crowder
there.
is like red.
He got,
He's like
he got the
yelling.
Bronze Star.
That's really
He got
funny.
the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser.
Gonna
He
have to
was
rewatch
a
the whole
patriot,
thing with
and the people
the
left
Crowder
behind
stuff.
there
I
were
freaking love his
heroes. And I
commentary.
resent
Are you talking about
like hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about
I'm
Hunter?
talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're
I
talking
don't know.
about
I don't know, Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah, you
Hunter
know
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
For
wasn't dishonorably.
cocaine use, and he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a
Actually,
fortune
all of
in
that is
Ukraine,
true.
in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made
son-
a fortune.
My son.
And he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken
have
it.
a
He's,
drug
he's,
problem.
he's fixed it. He's worked on it. And
Which
I'm
is
proud
why
of him.
he
Why was he
then
proud?
proceeded to get
He
his
wasn't given tens of millions.
That
is
is
totally
it was his
that is
brother's
totally
wife, his brother who died.
Totally
Yeah,
His,
got
his
hooked up
brother's
with his
brother's wife pregnant.
His dead brother's wife.
Yeah. So
So do I.
Subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make
I know,
a
but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay, right.
from the
Let's talk
mayor
about-
of Moscow,
That
that's
is
a
true. That
thing.
report is totally
Why did he get it?
discredited.
No, it's not.
No, what is discredited is that military thing you tried to throw at Trump.
You
Of
know, I'd like to talk about climate
Putin
change.
So would
and
I.
the
Okay.
bounty on soldiers'
The
heads.
forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions
Mm-hmm.
of acres. They have displaced
Been there.
hundreds of thousands of people.
Seen them. They're awful.
When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out
Technically,
of the Paris
the
Climate
science does
Accord.
know, but
You
the
have rolled back a
interpretation of the
number
science
Obama environmental
makes people
records.
say otherwise.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want
Water.
beautiful clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now,
That's because of coronavirus.
But I haven't destroyed
Well, even
our
before that, the
businesses. Our
U.S. was
businesses aren't put out
outperforming
of
every other
Well,
country.
yes,
If
that
you
was
look
that
at
was
the
because
Paris Accord,
you know we
it
have a
was a
free
disaster
market where
from our
we're
standpoint.
allowed
And
to
people are
you know
actually
that.
very
make
happy about
innovations
what's
and
going on because our businesses are
reward
doing
them
well.
thusly.
As far as the fires
Yeah,
are
right.
concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very exciting.
Billion
Believe
Tree
that-
Project.
That human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of
I
this
think a
planet?
lot
Well,
of
yes,
things do, but
of course
I
I
think
do.
to an extent, yes.
I just
to
don't
an
think
extent,
it's
yes,
to an
but I
amount that
also
we can
think
actually
we have to
mitigate
do better
by the
management
means
of
that
our
they
forests.
say.
Every year, I get the call, California's burning, California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management,
Controlled
you wouldn't be
burns.
getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities.
Controlled
They
burns,
maintain
controlled
their forests.
logging.
They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are
California
far
is so
more,
obsessed with
ignite much
protecting
easier
nature and
than
wildlife
California. There shouldn't
when,
be that problem. I spoke with the
let's see if
governor
I can
about
find
it.
the
I'm
story
getting
for
along
next
very
week
well
or
with the
something.
governor. But I said,
There's
at
a
some point,
guy that
you can't every year
his
have
house was in the way of
hundreds
some
thousands
construction
of acres
road
of
project or
land
whatever.
just burned to the ground.
So they were
That's
going
burning
to
down
pay him
because
for his
of a lack
property or
of
whatever. He
Sir,
didn't
if
want
you
to
believe in the science of
move.
climate change,
So he
why have
created
you
a name
rolled
of some
back the
endangered
Obama
frog
clean
and
power
told him
plan,
that
which
the frog
limited
lives
carbon
at
emissions
his
in power
house
plants.
in his
Why
yard.
have you relaxed?
Because it was
So they
driving energy
can't do
prices
anything. And
through the
California
sky.
said,
Why have
"Oh,
you
okay, we didn't know there's
relaxed
an
fuel
endangered
economy
frog there."
standards
So they
that are going to create more
aborted the
pollution from
project.
cars?
Well, not really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive
Didn't
and it's
look
a
into
much
it, really.
safer car. And you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
No, but you
ignored
would take a lot of cars
roadmap.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten
Many
so
climate
expensive because
change
they have
activists
computers all
actually
over the
agree
place
with him.
for an
Right.
extra little bit
Okay.
of gasoline.
And if you don't
and
believe
I'm
that,
okay with
there
electric
is a
cars,
book
too. I think I'm all for
called
electric cars. I've
The
given big incentives for electric
Skeptical.
cars. But what they've done in
what is it?
California is just
All right.
crazy.
Remember which one I'm talking
Vice
about? You
President
probably
Biden,
don't.
I'd like
It's
you to
I'll
respond
see if I can
to
find
the
it.
president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new
Green
limits, not
jobs.
abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to
Fracking
generate
is what
electricity
saved
by
our economy through all
2035,
this.
and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would
Yes,
tank
The Skeptical
economy and cost millions
Environmentalist
of dollars.
by
He's absolutely wrong,
Bjorn
number one.
Lomborg.
Number two,
That guy, yeah.
If in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the
Where he
cost
breaks down
of
the
renewable
environmentalist
energy
science.
to
Right.
cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two,
That's
we're gonna
great
make
if you
sure
let it
that
happen
we're able to
naturally.
That would be
take
great if
the
it happened naturally
federal
and
fleet
where
turn it into a
the
fleet that's run
energy
on
source had
their
actually been
electric
developed to the
vehicles,
point
making
where
sure
it
we
can
do that. We're
sustain
gonna put
that kind of
500,000
output,
charging
which it
stations
currently
on all the
cannot.
highways that we're
Which is
gonna
why
be building.
California
Considering that solar
We're gonna
energy
build
can't
an
even
economy
power
that, in
a
fact,
tiny
is
village
going to
in
provide
Africa.
for the ability of us to take 4 million
Or
buildings
California
and make
can't keep
sure
its
that they,
lights
in
on.
fact, are
Right.
weatherized
I'm gonna go ahead
in a
and
way
say,
that, in fact,
yeah, you're full
they'll
of
emit
crap.
significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not
No, we
only
can't.
not costing people
No,
jobs,
we can't.
creating jobs.
Well,
Creating
absolutely
millions of
cannot
good
do that.
paying
We could
jobs, not 15
if
bucks
we
an
had
hour,
nuclear
but
power.
That's true.
prevailing
We
wage.
could if we had nuclear
By having
power,
a
but
new
But that's
they'll-
not his
structure that, in
solution.
It's not their
fact, is
solution.
green. And the first thing I will do,
Un- until you can agree to the idea of nuclear power, the idea of net zero,
Never gonna happen.
Never gonna happen.
Apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy.
By the time-
Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down.
It's also
more
growing.
carbon is absorbed
Yeah,
in that
lot.
rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United
Also, there's a
States.
study that
Instead
shows
of
that
doing something
the
about that, I
output
would be
versus
gathering up and
input
making
of
sure we
all
had
of
countries
the
of the world
combined
come in with
forests in the
$20 billion
world
and say, "Here's
is
$20 billion.
actually
Stop,
a net
stop
zero.
tearing
As
down
far as oxygen
the
goes.
forest.
Uh-huh.
And if you don't,
They-
then you're gonna
they
have
put out
significant
just as
economic
much carbon
consequences.
What about the argument that the President
as
Trump
they
basically
put out
says
oxygen.
that you have to balance environmental
Through their
interests
natural
and economic
processes.
interests,
So,
and he's drawn
there's
his
that.
line.
There's
Well, he hasn't
also
drawn a line. He still, for example, makes
and,
sure that he wants to make
all the
sure
sand that the
methane's
Amazon
not a problem.
loses
We can,
is
you
replaced
can
by
now
sand
emit
from
more
the
methane
Sahara.
without it being a problem. Methane.
Have you
This
seen
is a
that
guy
one
who
before?
What is-
says
what is
that
the sand in
you don't
Sahara
have to have
replaced
mileage
with?
standards for automobiles that exist
know,
now.
probably
This
sand
is the
in
guy who
somewhere
says that.
But it's as if
the fact
the world
it's all
cycles.
work. And here's
He's
the
talking
deal.
about the Green New Deal, and it's not 2 billion
I'm-
or 20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they
the
want to rip
Biden
down
plan.
Go for a
buildings
minute, and then you can go.
and rebuild the building.
No,
It's the
that is
dumbest,
not-
most
that
ridiculous.
is not-
Thank you. Thank you.
Where two-car systems are out,
the
where they want
dumbest.
to take out the cows too.
Not
That's
true.
not true either, right?
Not
This is a 100
Simply,
trillion.
look,
That's more money than our
is-
country could make in
that is
100
simply
years if we're
not
going.
the case.
All right, let me
It will destroy our
because I
country.
actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes, So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs. Good
Fake
paying
jobs.
But let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create
It's-
millions of.
that's-
I almost said
jobs.
something really
And there's
bad right
tax
there.
incentives to people,
That's
for
what
people
the
to weatherize.
Hoover
She
Dam
wants
was.
to get
It was a
get rid of.
fake money
It's gonna
project.
Make the economy much safer.
And it
Look
was
how much
great
we're
for what
paying
it
now
did
to
for
deal with the hurricanes,
California,
with the
basically,
deal
but-
with, by the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He
For
said, maybe we
how
should drop
long
a
it did it
nuclear
for.
weapon out
Yeah,
of
until
the
California
never
decided to
said
stop
that.
That's-
doing
he
that.
You made it
And here's the
But
deal.
yeah,
make
the
up a-
we're going to
Hoovervilles
be in a position where
sprouted
we
up
can create
because of building the
hard,
Hoover Dam. It was
hard,
just
good jobs by
a
making
government
sure the
project that gave
environment
money
is
that didn't really
clean,
do
and we
anything for the
all are in
economy,
better
and so
shape.
these-
We
Much
spend
like most government
billions of
projects.
dollars now.
Yes.
Billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's
Rising
happened just in the
Rising
Midwest with these
seas,
storms
because
that come through
people
and
are going
wipe
to
out
drown if we don't
sections and
stop the
counties
rising
in
of the
Iowa.
sea.
That didn't happen before. They're because of
If you're familiar with the
global
scene in
warming.
Austin
We
Powers
make
where he's
up
in the
15%
steamroller and the
of
guy's
the
just
world's
standing
problem.
there,
We, in fact, but
if the
rest of
ocean
the
is
world, we gotta get
rising
them to come along.
at the
That's
rate
what we
of
have to get
an
back
inch
into,
every 100
back
years,
into the
you
Paris
deserve to
Accord.
drown.
All right,
Yes, you do.
gentlemen,
When you're
So why
just
didn't
standing
you
there
do it for
watching it
47
come
years?
at
You
you.
were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is not
$20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
The Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is not
building.
my plan.
I want to
All
rebuild
right,
every.
If he knew
you have to-
anything
wait, no, no,
about,
wait.
if he knew
Gentlemen,
He
anything
made a
about,
statement about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That
The
is not
Atlantic.
He
true.
did
Sir,
is he
you're done in
said
this segment.
he called
Mr.
the
Vice-
military
Mr. Vice President.
stupid bastards.
He did. He did indeed. That is a fact.
Stupid bastards. He
not
said
true.
it.
Stop.
I
That's
would
not
never
true.
say that to
Play
the
it.
military.
Play it.
Go ahead,
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President.
Roll the
Answer
tape.
his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm in a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your
the
environmental
Green New
changes will
Deal-
do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as
No,
we
it won't.
move forward.
Well,
We're not
he
No,
gonna
it
was
won't.
just
build
saying
plants
he
that, in
doesn't.
fact,
He's not the
are
Green New
great
Deal,
polluting
and now
plants.
he's
You're gonna
saying
build
that
a
it
Green
is
New
the
Deal?
Green New Deal.
Pardon
And
me?
it'll pay for itself.
No, I don't
Pay
support
for
the
itself.
Green
Which
New Deal.
it will
No,
not.
Oh, well, that's a
you
big
let-
statement.
I
That
support
means
the
you
Well,
can't
maybe under
afford
modern
the left.
monetary
I
theory,
said
where they can
I
just digitally
support
create
the
whatever
Biden
money they
plan
want
that I put
to pay for it.
And
The Biden plan, which
No
is
more tape.
different than what he calls the radical Green New
Deleted.
Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment.
just change that
Election
negative to a
integrity.
positive.
We meet tonight. Millions of
It's
Americans
so easy
are
to do
receiving
accounting when all you
mail-in
need to do is
ballots or
change the
going to vote
negative
early.
numbers to positive
How
ones.
confident should we be that this will
It's
be a
like
fair
we're
election, and
rich.
what are you prepared
Just like
to
it.
do over the next 5
But he's a bad man for
weeks,
evading
because it will not only
taxes
be the
because
election
we
day, but
need that
also
money.
counting some
Bad man
ballots,
bad.
mail-in ballots
Orange
after
man
election day.
bad.
What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Oh,
Prepared
here
to
we
let people
go.
Vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote.
iwillvote.com.
His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that
Paid
there are
for
going
by
to be
the
millions
Democratic
of people
National
because
Committee.
of COVID.
Pretty
that are
sure
gonna be
that
voting
is
by
not
mail-in
what
ballots, like
they
he
said.
does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote.
Look at the camera,
You
Joe.
will determine the outcome
Talk
of this
to the
election.
people, Joe.
Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you.
He
because you
almost
he
said,
cannot stop you
vote early,
from
vote
being
often.
able to determine
Almost.
the outcome
Almost
of this
said
election.
Caught
And in terms
himself.
of whether or not when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I
Whoever's
win,
operating that camera
will be
needs to knock
accepted.
it
If I
off.
lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way,
It's
if
just
in fact
barely
he says
squiggling
he's
around.
Not sure what he's going to accept. Well, let me tell you
Yeah,
something. It doesn't
you
matter.
see it just kinda-
Because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't
doing
stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country's going to look like the next 4 years.
Thanks,
Is it
Joe.
gonna change
I'm gonna
or
go
is it
vote for
4
Trump
more
now.
years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after
He's
me
not
trying to
wrong.
do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country.
Yes,
and
they
we've
were.
Caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country.
Unsolicited
There's fraud.
ballots.
He's
They
finally
found them in
clarifying.
creeks. They
It's
found
taken
some
him
with
this
the
long
name
to
Trump, just
clarify.
happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a wastepaper basket. They're being sent all over the
Fact.
place.
That
They
happened.
Sent two in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%.
It really can.
It's a
Yeah, we
fraud.
covered that
Like,
like, Fred, like
you're-
the third
And
episode
can
or
you
something like
imagine
that.
where they
Yeah.
say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th.
Only 25% of the
One-
voting
That
population of the
means
United
that's
States.
1% of the
after
vote in
the election,
Florida
in theory,
is the
should have
difference
been announced.
between
We have
Bush
major states with
and
that, all run
Less
by
than
Democrats.
Gore. Less than 1%. They had 500 votes difference in Florida when Bush won.
Charging for months that mail-in ballots
And
is
that
gonna be a disaster.
a
You say
1%
it's
swing
rigged,
there
it's gonna
would
lead
have
to
changed
fraud.
the
In
entire election
2018,
then.
In the last midterm
Yep.
election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I don't think I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what
They
are you
throw
going to
them
do
out
about it?
left
There
and
are
right.
millions of ballots going out
What
right
you
now.
do
What are
is you
gonna
go
do?
and vote.
So
You
in
do a
2016,
solicited ballot.
25% of the
Okay,
population
well, you go and
voted.
vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people
You go and
have
vote. You go and
No,
vote
but
like
what I'm
they,
saying is that what are
like
you
they
gonna do
used
about
to
the
in
fact
the
that
old.
millions of people-
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen.
That's not what he's
with
asking,
lots of it.
Trump.
Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country.
There is no-
This is not.
there is no
This is
evidence
not
of
going to
that.
end well.
Actually, there is.
There's no
This
evidence
is
of that.
not going
Vice
to
President
end well.
Biden-
5 states
fact,
have had
go ahead,
mail-in
sir.
ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states.
Yep, Utah's one
You
of them.
don't have to solicit the ballot; it's sent to you.
No, you do
Sent
have to
your
solicit
home.
it.
What we're saying is, they're saying
I
is
do
that
have to
there
ask
be a
for it to be
postmark
mailed to me.
by the time.
Well, at least
by
you
election
used
day.
to.
If
I
it
actually
doesn't
think
get
that
in
now, if
until
you register,
7,
they
8,
send it to
9,
you,
still
and then
should
it's
be
your decision
counted.
whether to mail
He's
it
just
back or to take
afraid
it to
of
the ballot
counting the
box.
votes because
You're
of the
wrong.
outcome.
You're wrong. I
No,
love
I
counting
want to
votes.
continue with you on
I
this,
love
Vice
counting
President
votes.
Biden. because
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes
in
a
fact,
statement
no,
like that.
excuse me. Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers. Sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out
True.
because they
Or
have not
lost
been
in
properly
transit,
filled
or-
out, or there is some other irregularity.
He's just talking just
or
thrown
they
out
missed
because
the
it was
deadline. So the question I
wrong
have
in
is,
some way.
are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you
Look at the
when
camera,
you
Joe.
when you get a ballot and you fill
They
it
forgot to
out,
tell him to try not
you're
to
supposed have
blink
an affidavit. If you
rapidly
didn't
when he
know, you had
lies.
someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown
That'd be
out.
interesting to look
that's
at,
sufficient
actually.
to be able to count the
See
ballot
if that's
because
a
someone
consistent
made a
thing.
mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for.
It's how he keeps
say
from
it's you.
looking
That is totally
to,
legitimate.
upper left
Excuse me,
corner
President,
as he's
I have
trying to
80
think of
million
what to
ballots.
say.
Sending and swamping.
Instead of looking somewhere,
You
he's
know
just
it
blinking
can't be done.
rapidly.
You know it can't, and already
All
there's
right,
been
so now
fraud.
Mail
This
service
final-
delivers
Wait a minute, gentlemen. And the
185
final
million
question
pieces of
is,
mail a day.
in 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited currently by law.
Can't do it anymore.
from
Can't
even
do it
seeing the
anymore.
process.
12 minutes. 12,
Ballots,
just
even
12
take them
minutes.
out of the envelopes and flatten them until election day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know
What's
on
Crowder
election
doing?
night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks.
He's
until
reading
we find out
off.
who
He
the
has
new
a
president
stack
is.
of papers
First
that
for you,
is
sir,
this thick
finally, for the vice
of
president, I hope
charges
neither of you will
for
interrupt the other.
mail
Will you urge
mail-in
your
voting and
supporters
other voting
to
fraud
stay
in
calm
different states.
during this extended
And he's
period,
reading
not
off the
to
charges
engage
and
in any
convictions
civil unrest, and will you pledge
of
tonight
fraud in the
that you
last
will not
elections.
declare
But it doesn't
victory
exist.
until
Nope.
the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you
I'm
go first.
urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair
You're urging
election,
them what?
I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell
what-
you
what
what,
does that
from
mean,
a
not go
common
along?
sense,
Does that mean
I'll
you're gonna
tell you
tell
what
your
it means.
people to take to the
It means you
street?
have a fraudulent election. You're
And what
sending
are you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would you
ballots.
do about that?
They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two,
Okay.
they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found
Yeah.
ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
You know
Biden,
what?
That's good.
Vice President Biden, final question
Next
to you.
week we'll do a history
Will you
thing.
urge your supporters to stay
Battle of
calm
Athens.
while the vote
Battle
is
of
counted,
Athens.
And will you pledge
You remember
not
that
to
story?
declare
I
don't
victory
remember that
until the
story.
election is
It's
independently certified?
sometimes
Yes,
called the
here's the deal.
McMinn
You
County
count the
War.
ballots, as you
It
pointed
was
out.
when
Some of
the
these ballots in some states
county
can't
sheriff
even be opened
was
until
stuffing the
election
ballot
day.
box.
There's
Yes.
thousands of ballots going
Went
to
in
take time
and
to do it.
sheriff
And by the
stuff.
way,
Well,
our military,
that's a good
they've
one.
been
We'll do
voting
that next
by
week. That'll be
ballots
fun.
Athens.
since at the end of the Civil War, in effect.
Relatable.
And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots. That somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already
Crowder?
been established. Take a look at Carolyn
I-
Maloney's
I
race.
asked
and how-
you had an opportunity
Look
to
at Carolyn
respond.
Monroe.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
Crowder's
He
a
has no
little
idea what
ways
he's
behind
talking
us.
about. Here's the deal. The
Are they
fact is,
pausing
I
and
will accept
talking
it,
or
and he
something
will
like that,
too,
or-
you know
No,
why?
they're just their
Because
feed is
once
like
the
lagged
winner is
behind us, so
declared
they
after
just barely
all
got
the
to
ballots are counted, all the
where
votes are
he was
counted.
talking about like they're
That'll
not
be the end of
equipped
it.
to handle
That'll
it.
be the end of it.
And
And
that-
if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome, and I'll be a
There you have it,
president
right
not
there.
just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans.
He
And
just
this
lied
guy-
through his
I
teeth.
want to see an honest
Okay,
ballot count.
gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the
I
end
wanna
of this
see an
debate?
honest ballot count.
We're
And I
going to
think
leave
he
it
does
there.
too.
To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both.
There's
for
not gonna be any more
participating
debates.
in the first of three
No.
debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank
Trump
Case
will happily
Western
do more.
Reserve University And the Cleveland
Biden
Clinic
might
for
get
hosting
sick or
this
something at
event,
the
the
next
next
one.
debate, sponsored by the Commission on
Or
Presidential
it'll be
Well,
Debates,
we won't
will
grace
be
him
1
with the
week from
debate.
tomorrow,
He actually
October
came out
7th, at the University of
and
Utah
semi looked like he
in
had
Salt
his
Lake
wits
City. The
about
two
him. I
vice
mean, he was
presidential
lying through his
nominees,
teeth and a
Vice
bunch of the
President Mike
stuff,
Pence and Senator
pulling
Kamala
out
Harris.
completely
The debate at 9
bogus
p.m.
stories a
Eastern that
lot.
night. We hope you
But
watch. Until then, thank you.
he had his wits about him, and he was responding well, and I don't think Trump helped himself with the talking over and attacking.
No, that was a not helpful.
That was not helpful, and so I very easily see them not doing any more debates after tonight,
Right.
because I mean that's about as good as you get Biden right there.
Yep. And I can see them. I can see the Biden campaign agreeing to like a virtual debate where they can easily just mute Trump and then mute Biden when Trump's speaking, just back and forth. So then they actually get their 2 minutes. I can see him agreeing to something like that, but that wouldn't be nearly as
Trump wouldn't agree to
entertaining.
that.
No, that wouldn't be as
No.
entertaining.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, where do we go from there?
That was entertaining.
I think it'd be fun to show the clip of what what Trump was talking about with Biden, with the military.
Oh, that one. If I was good at prepping for this, I would have pulled up the email on here that has that story. Luckily, it's just an M away. There we go.
Yeah. In the meantime, I actually have a couple of the other stories that we were talking about here. So a couple of things that were hit on in the debate that are pretty easy to cover. So one of the things that Trump talked about is how there was no transition for him. As soon as he came down the escalator, as soon as he came down the escalator, they were attacking him, and that was verified
Very recently.
very recently, like last week,
As well as last year.
But last week, an FBI employee declared that shortly after the then president-elect suggested that officials delayed a White House transition briefing on Russian meddling in the 2016 election because they needed time, that Trump was right, because they needed time to build a case, is what they said back at that time. So there was a text message that came along with this declaration. A text message exchange that took place on January 5th of 2017 and was among several that lawyers for former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn said were turned over to them late Thursday night. During the conversation on the FBI's link messaging system, which is like their texting
instant message, whatever
messaging
thing.
supposedly secure, an unidentified employees discussed a briefing that day of then President Barack Obama, according to the Friday court filing. And yeah, it's
What's the word on how O's briefing went? Don't know, but people here are scrambling for info to support certain things, and it's a madhouse.
The next message was a one-word response, followed by an apparent reference to a Trump tweet from 2 days earlier.
Trump was right, still not put together. Why do we do this to ourselves? What is wrong with these people? There you go. It's just...
And the tweet was the intelligence briefing on so-called Russian hacking was delayed until Friday. Perhaps more time needed to build a case. Very strange.
The gut that Trump has is oddly accurate.
Yeah.
It is almost scary accurate.
There are some times when he says something and I'm just like, bah. And then a week or two later, I'm like, God, how? How the hell?
How? Yeah.
So, we also have articles here. We can post all this together with the actual stuff when we post the recording. But we have Trump's ban on critical race theory. And then what was it you were going to do?
The video you wanted.
Video, yes. We've got this lovely video.
Play the clip.
Play the clip. You know the thing. Play the thing.
There you go.
Notwithstanding what you may hear about me, I have incredibly good judgment. One, I married Jill. And two, I appointed Johnson to the Academy. I just want you to know that. Let's clap for that, you stupid bastard.
Oh,
And you are a dull bunch. One, I married
wow.
Jill.
This one's a little better
I
quality.
appointed Johnson to the Academy. I just want you to know that. Just clap for that, you stupid bastard.
Did he really like that? That's the first time I've seen that first part of that clip.
You're
Did
a
he
dull
really
bunch?
say you're a dull bunch afterwards?
Yeah, that's what it
What?
said. Now he said
Like-
it in jest. He said
That didn't sound like it was a jest.
nor did it look in jest.
I mean,
But we are-
I guess sure.
We're supposed to just take this as
I guess I'll take it at face value that he was kidding, but really, it's a poor taste for a
it's-
joke right there.
It's hard to take it as a joke when they did what they did to Donald Trump based off of anonymous sources only
it's-
to The Atlantic, which the head of The Atlantic is a major Biden donor.
Yeah, the thing that makes it hard for me to take as a joke is his body language there, because he doesn't.
He's got that I can't believe they're so dumb look on.
Yeah, well,
about
and
it.
not
Surrounded
just
by
that. Like
idiots.
when you say something offensive as a joke, you usually kind of laugh afterwards,
Right.
and then you continue
just
on.
messing.
He doesn't do that. He says, "Clap for that, you dumb bastards," and then he's looking around. And he's like, "Wow, you're a dull bunch." Like, wow.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us how you really feel, Joe?
And that's really on par with behavior from other video clips of where he's talking about how you can't go to a 7-Eleven without being served by someone that's got a Indian accent. I'm not joking. I'm
and I mean,
I'm not joking.
maybe he's just an asshole. I don't know.
You're not wrong. You're just an asshole.
You're not wrong. You're just an asshole.
Yeah.
Can we say that on YouTube? I don't even know if we can say that on YouTube.
I don't know. We're not monetized, so we also
I don't get paid for this.
we also don't care too much about YouTube anyway. We're gonna try the Rumble thing probably
Yeah, probably.
as we're streaming on YouTube.
We should probably copy this video over and move it to Rumble when we're done.
About that, I might have not hit record.
So we haven't been live this whole time?
No, we've been streaming. The stream has been a thing.
Oh, the stream. But doesn't it automatically record as we stream? No. It doesn't? So we just lost all of that but the podcast?
I mean, I can get it.
Theoretically?
I know how to get it.
Yeah. Anyway, so we have a bunch of other stuff here. We have, the military ballots found discarded in Pennsylvania. Opening Florida. We have some stuff on the ballot boxes.
Yeah, there's some Democratic fund people and lawmakers that are pushing for in-person voting now because mail-in voting isn't reliable.
But as usual, we're like an hour over time, and
Yeah, it's good enough.
that's good enough for us. So I guess we'll just see you guys next week,
Yeah,
where
next
we'll talk
week
about
The Battle of Athens.
Battle of Athens.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. And if you
Leave comments, do things.
do the YouTube thing, we're trying to get the videos up on YouTube, but that'll be if you watch.
Like we said, we need a producer that has time to actually
you're
do the things.
do the things. And,
But we don't have one, so you get what we can do.
And then watching the videos, you're going to be 3 months behind on everything. So
At least.
But you can see what we predicted.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys later.
Bye.